Hello, hello, and welcome back to some Real Talk with Jesse and Sherrod. I'm back again this week. Thank you for holding down our fort, Jesse, with our last episode.
No problem, but you were missed. You were missed.
Today, we are so excited to have Greg Dicharry with us. Greg is an amazing mental health advocate, professional documentary filmmaker, and so much more. Greg, we cannot thank you enough for being with us for this really important episode we're going to have about mental health when you work in mental health and taking care of yourself and finding that balance. So we're excited to have some real talk. So thank you for being here with us.
Awesome. Thanks for having me.
Greg, we would love, could you maybe just kind of talk our audience through some of your amazing career and advocacy highlights? We just love to know more about you.
All right. But thank you guys for having me on. I'm very much a fan of your work, Shared, and I'm sure you do quite fabulous work yourself, Jesse. So thank you guys. Yeah, so my career started in mental health back in 1995. I was living in LA. I was pursuing a dream of working in the entertainment industry. I was having some, moderate success working on a variety of different TV shows, movies, working on trying to do my own little kind of pilot show. And then I had my first met what was later described as a manic episode. And so, shortly thereafter, I was, put in the hospital for the first time. I was diagnosed with being bipolar, with substance use disorder. Basically, they told me, if I didn't take these medications and stop using drugs and alcohol, I was going to keep ending up in places like that. And I didn't heed that warning, and I kept ending up in places like that. And it was kind of years later, a number of manic episodes later, I had moved back to Arizona, where I had gone to college, and was on disability at that time, on mental health disability. I'd kind of heard of the peer support thing where you could get trained to work in the field if you had a mental health issue. Um, I had signed up for vocational rehab, who funded the training at that time. I went through the training, and actually, because I had a college degree, was able to get hired at the agency that offered the training. I was an employment specialist, and the person who was running the peer training program shortly thereafter left, and I was able to get her position as the peer training, coordinator. So I had the opportunity to train and then help people get jobs, keep jobs, so kind of supported employment services and that sort of stuff. So that really, started my career working in the field. It kind of advanced from there. I'd started going back to school. I was going to work on a master's in social work, and I had gotten a job working at a recovery center. So right there, they have a lot of peer-run recovery centers, and started going to school and was going to be going to school full time. And then right at that time, I was actually taking about 3 or 4 classes towards a master's and was starting full time. And right kind of then, I got offered this job at Magellan Healthcare, who had just gotten a big contract in Arizona, and that was my quite the jump from doing the kind of work which was very lower pay, shall we say. Some of the bigger healthcare companies pay a lot more, so essentially my salary doubled, and my job was in the provider network department, which that's basically for the big managed care. They have a department that manages all the different provider organizations, but my position was peer and family delivered development services development manager. This long convoluted title that really didn't nobody knew what kind of the job was or whatever. So I but what I took it as, and worked as it was basically working with peer run agencies, family run agencies, as well as just typical behavioral health agencies to start and enhance peer delivered services. And so Arizona was pretty advanced in this, regard. So So yeah, so that's what I did, and got to know, a lot of the different organizations, and really kind of advocate for peer services, and was real involved in doing similar for family services. And pretty early on, I had come up with the idea to start a youth group for the company, which was not in my, job description in any way.
Mhm.
But I came up with the idea, and then basically they let me run with it, and it took off in Arizona. Then I got to a couple years later start replicating that other places that Magellan had business. So Pennsylvania, Florida, Nebraska, um, and then Louisiana. And so that was really cool working with young people. So it's basically a group for young people who have experience with like mental health, substance use, large portion, probably vast majority in foster care, um, that were, in group homes, who kind of are not at the point of that they're going to be adopted. And it's about helping them kind of gain the skills to not take the road that many young people who are in foster care end up, traveling, which is, for really negative outcomes. Uh, so yeah, so did that. Was at Magellan for 15 years. I had always, when I was in LA, I obviously had the big dream of working in film and entertainment, and that was really dream was kind of destroyed from my own mental health and substance use issues. My first few manic episodes were around doing film projects, because I was getting really into them. I'd be real kind of excited. I would sleep less and less, and then I was like off the rails. So that really didn't seem possible at all. But with the youth group, I got a camera and began doing like little videos with the kids, and getting their stories and events and everything. And then I met a guy, Kevin Hines, who is a big suicide prevention, speaker. And I would see him at conferences and stuff. We became friends. And then, he said, "Oh, I want to do this documentary." So we ended up doing this documentary called Suicide, the Ripple Effect, which took us a few years to make, and then, put out. It did, was real successful in the suicide prevention, mental health realm. And then, you know, we were doing a big premiere here in Baton Rouge, and we were doing a panel discussion after the film. And my sister had heard about this girl, Emma, who had just recently, well, like 8 months prior, had attempted to take her life. And she connected me, and I'm like, "Hey, well, we were looking for panelists." So, I said, "Would you like to be on the panel after the film?" She said, yes. I went out to meet with her and her parents, and asked if I could bring my camera along, just not really intending to do any kind of significant project, but that it could maybe be a little PSA type of thing. And that turned out to be the first interview that's featured in the film My Ascension, which was a second film, which is more geared towards youth suicide prevention. And Emma's story, which, if you're not familiar, she was cheerleader, very popular, great friends, great families. Nobody knew she was struggling in any way until she got her dad's gun out of the closet, and attempted to take her life. So that's been a great ride as far as that film. It's done very well. We're on PBS and about 1,000 stations. We've screened all over the country, a lot here in Louisiana at schools and sort of thing. So that's great. And about 2 years ago now, I had left my job at Magellan, where I'd been for 15 years, and was doing some advocacy work. And uh, with some of the different parishes. I was working for a treatment center for the last year, doing kind of marketing and community engagement type of stuff. I left that at the beginning of the year, and so now just kind of transitioning, seeing what's next. So that's kind of the rundown. I don't know if that was too long or what, but
No, I mean, filled with amazing accomplishments and just so cool. I would like to say that it is because of Greg I got to meet Kevin Hines. And I was embarrassing because I saw him at your premiere, or like learned about Kevin Hines at the premiere of Suicide: The Ripple Effect, and like instantly thought his story was so powerful, and it was really something that motivated me in my journey with advocacy for suicide prevention. So then I met Greg at an outreach event when you were finishing up My Ascension, and you got me to do a table at that premiere. And then Kevin Hines was on one of those panels, and the picture that I took is so shaky because like my camera was wobbling.
Oh, funny.
Thank you for that.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's cool how to kind of pass it on thing, because one of the first things that Emma, I guess her dad maybe showed her a video or something of Kevin, one of the ones we did, and that was while she was still in the hospital, and that was kind of one of the things that motivated her to want to share her story. So
Yeah.
Well, that's definitely very super impressive that you've been able to, make those films, and you've seemed like you've done a lot of work. Um, During your career journey, have you had like a favorite project or position that you've worked on, or do you consider anything like your biggest success?
um well, I mean, I think my biggest success work wise would be the My Life youth group, because that's the thing that really took off, and really being able to have the big impact in these young people's lives who, in a lot of cases have no family, really no kind of supports, and really teach them that they can really use their negative experiences they've had as a positive experience, and basically being able to kind of flip the switch. And so I would travel around the country with young people and give them the opportunities to share their stories, and really kind of show them how how they can use those negative experiences for positive, because that's very healing. A lot of times when you've
Right.
been through a lot of traumatic stuff, and you're just like, why the hell is this happened to me? Why me? If you can kind of put some purpose in that pain, it can often be very beneficial for people's healing process. So, and I did these big festivals with that. So we would do these big festivals around the country. Um, so that was really, great. And the films definitely, very much a blessing to be able to kind of do those. But
Yeah, I definitely agree. I think that's amazing.
thank you.
I think so too. I mean, I have had the privilege of getting to work a lot with Greg over the past few years, and I'm very thankful for that. And Greg does so many amazing things, but I think we've worked the most on when you've set up your events for the screenings of your film, My Ascension, which is amazing. We can put a description on how you can get your own screening of My Ascension in the episode description. But we've been to all sorts of crowds when we've shown My Ascension. We've been at schools, we've shown to parents, to students, at churches, we've shown to clinicians. There was the big theater release of it, and you are always so amazingly open and honest as you're leading the panel discussions afterwards on your own mental health journey. And I think that that's really inspiring to so many people to see this amazing creative force for good, and that you're not ashamed to speak on about your own mental health. What do you think sort of drives you to be so open and honest, even to crowds full of strangers, about your own mental health journey?
I think having done it a lot of time and for a lot of years, I think is part of it. But I think, also part of it, kind of like what I shared before, if I can use my experience to try to help somebody else, then it's worth it. I mean, a lot of that I think too comes from 12-step recovery, which I've, been involved with throughout the years. And a big part of that is the storytelling aspect. So where we share our stories with hopes that it can inspire another person or give another person some hope or a little direction. And so that was something that you start out in these, meetings. And I remember one of the first times, basically, if you're not familiar with 12 steps, there's these hour-long meetings, formats are different, but a lot of meetings, there'll be a speaker meeting. So somebody will ask, hey, will you speak at this meeting? And basically you share your story, which may be for an hour, maybe for 10 minutes or whatever. But the first time I got asked to tell my story, and I had this was when I was in Arizona, and I shipped back out there to basically, go in recovery. And I was like, terrified, it was this evening meeting. It was a lot of young people, and I was to share my meeting with, my story for 10 minutes. And I told my sponsor, my 12-step sponsor, I'm like, God, because crazy, I never showed my story before. And he's just like, well, tell the truth and don't suck. And that kind of lightened it a little bit. But that was a big cornerstone to the My Life Youth program, is getting them kind of in a similar format to share their story, share their recovery journey, share their testimony, and that sort of thing. So, and then I think, with going through the peer support stuff, that was a big part of, peer support is basically one of the reasons you're having these positions, or these positions designated for peers, is because you have that lived experience with, with mental health. And so that was kind of another way of sharing your experience and getting more open about sharing it. So I've always been very, open about sharing it, even kind of more of the details, and a lot, through that of, was to win a lot of awards around the My Life stuff, but also just around our recovery journey, which often, which involves me telling my my recovery journey. Lately it can be potentially some, like, sort of downsides of this, self-disclosure, which I hadn't really thought about until really the kind of recent years, when I left Magellan. And I don't have any, like, regrets or wouldn't change anything, but you know, I was working in mental health for all these years. So mental health and, like, the kind of roles that I was in, having that lived experience was a really big, you know, badge of honor, or thing to really add to the resume, and that sort of thing. Um, so I, shared my story very, openly on, you know, podcasts, TV shows, my bios out there, everything, like, with detailed of my recovery story, in terms of, like, how many times I've, been to the hospital, 12 times, or it's probably more than that now, but, like, all the kind of different nitty gritty sort of details. And so then when I started, like, and I'm very Googleable with that. So, so then I thought of where I've kind of, like, start looking, all right, well, maybe I'll, I've done a lot of marketing and communications with degrees in that. Maybe I'll look outside of the mental health for jobs like that. But then I'm thinking, like, well, anybody that Googles me is gonna I'll quickly see that, that I have this mental health background, which is I'm not ashamed of, but to an outside person, or even to myself, if I was, considering hiring somebody and looking at their sort of background, like, oh, this guy's been in the hospital 12 times. He's, walked naked down the down the street, like, all this kind of stuff. Even I would take a little pause. And similarly with dating, I kind of dabble on the old dating apps. And so, I can only imagine if I'm talking to someone, and I don't talk to many people on there, but if I did, and it gets to the point of, sharing names, or even kind of identifiable things or whatever, and they're Googling, then it's like, you know, similarly, I mean, if I would be a little cautious, even though, if somebody has all these mental health issues. So I don't know, just say all that because it's interesting to sort of think about. Again, I don't regret it, or, like, wouldn't have changed it, because I do feel like it, helps people. Um, but uh, but yeah, it is a thing, so to speak, if you're working on a thing. But I mean, I think, been blessed, being able to share my own experience was what would really allow me to work with the young people, and having them success in sharing their stories, and really kind of helping them. And a lot of it's kind of would be baptism, by fire, so to speak, of training them a little bit. Okay, we're going to go talk to these judges, and we would go and talk to a group, of judges, or we go talk to juvenile justice counselors, or we'll go to this, conference, and just basically giving them an opportunity to kind of build themselves up. And that was, really kind of a similar approach in terms of, working with Emma, as far as, like, just finding, okay, here, let's go, let's go talk at this conference, or let's go, do this radio show or whatever, and just, really get to see the benefits that it has on them for just being able to share their story and kind of have that healing aspect of things.
Yeah. And subtly plug your dating profile. I'm just kidding.
Right.
But no, I think that's amazing. I think really showing, I mean, the cycle of life that is so true of being like when you've gone through stuff, you're such a strong person. It didn't make you stronger. You are strong and you've survived things. And then when you have that real experience that you can connect with someone on and really be that, supportive force of being like, and you can then pay it forward in your journey and support other people. And I think that that's so powerful, especially to give that message to younger people that it's like you can do anything and you can end up empowering other people and being an example that makes someone feel like they're not alone. I mean, I think that's always, been your message. And I think that's so wonderful.
Oh, thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely nice to know that, that the people, especially kids in foster homes. I've worked with a lot of kids in different places in foster homes and group homes. And it's always nice to, have somebody advocate for them because they don't really have a lot of people on their side. So the fact that, you're out there helping, and that's just really amazing. I know we were talking earlier and you were saying that like with people Googling you that it can, kind of you feel, like you put yourself out there. And you also feel like the backlash of it. But have you like you being so open, have you ever like encountered any like stigma or like really big backlash due to being so open?
Uh, no, I don't think so. I mean, I think for the most part, it's very positive. A lot of the things that I talked to you about, with the job and the dating thing, it just is just my thinking as far as like
Right.
my perception or whatever may or may not be true. I mean, I think it, just putting myself in the position, I could see that it would be true. But no, I mean, it's been overwhelmingly, positive. Like I said, I've gotten a lot of acknowledgments as far as, from my story, from all kind of top organizations and stuff like that. And kind of, so that is awesome from that respect, but then also just in the the workplace in terms of being able to help reduce that kind of stigma with coworkers who, been real supportive folks, like you all that are clinicians or, even like leaders of large companies who, uh, been very supportive when I kind of share my personal experience and stuff with things.
Yeah.
That's awesome. I'm glad that it's been more positive for you
Oh, yeah.
because, that's, I think when you put yourself out there, you never know what to expect, but it's really awesome that you can share your story and you get a lot of positive feedback. That's really, I'm sure has made you feel better. And I'm sure it's touched so many people across the world. So, I think that's amazing that you are so open and honest about everything.
Awesome. Thank you.
And I think even highlights kind of like a bigger issue of not only just workplaces, but now the focus is even switch. Sorry, this is not a planned topic, but I just thought about it.
No, bring it.
Switching even to schools that, they had legislation last year about in Louisiana that like students should be allotted mental health days and things like that for absences for school. And like a lot of workplace settings where they're shifting things into being like, you don't need to be sick to need a day off or like having a fever, like you need to take care of your mental health as well. And mental health, being concerned about your own mental health shouldn't be punitive. If you go to your boss and you're like, hey, I need a little bit of a break because, my anxiety is acting up or whatever it is. I mean, I know I've talked to our CEO being like, I'm overloaded and I'm too anxious and I need a break. And I love that we do work in mental health, so it's easier. But I like that perspective shifting of like your mental health is your physical health. Your brain is in your body and you have to
Right.
take care of it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I definitely agree.
So policy shifting. We should all advocate for it. I'll go to our
Yeah, I
scheduling
mean, I think
question.
it ebbs and flows, and you think you're making kind of headway with that, and then you're back, 20. I mean, we do a lot of work in the schools, particularly. I mean, you know, with my ascension, we were in lots and lots of schools all over the state. And, there's just lots of challenges with mental health services and lack thereof, and lack of counselors. I mean, as you know very well, you focus on that intensely. And then, a lot of, with the sort of changing sort of landscape and political stuff, you'll have people fighting at school board meetings that, doing certain stuff is too woke, or mental health is, or cutting back mental health stuff, or not doing kind of groups or things like that. So it's definitely you know, problematic, to say the least, and lots of opportunities to kind of do stuff and try to educate you know, educate people. But um it's just a sad state of affairs with anything like social emotional learning, or things that are just very like basic kind of stuff that can then become, people can be against them for for some
Right.
kind of reason.
Yeah, sort of like politicizing a health issue,
Mhm.
which I mean, I don't think anybody likes to see. Um, I'll bring us back from my tangent, but thank y'all for rolling with me with that. But it aligns. So good job on me. But we all know when you're working in mental health, that you have to take care of your own mental health. It is an environment when you're getting degrees, when you're working in a mental health agency, that we talk about self-care a lot. It's a lot easier to say than to do. Like my mom always calls me on it, that I'm not treating myself with like the same encouragement I would give a client or something like that. But how do you try and manage to take care of your own mental health, your own self maintenance, when you can work in sort of this like high volume, high race kind of stressful environment as you do?
Well, I'm still trying to figure figure that one out. Um, no, I mean, it's, it was been challenging. So I mean, I had, like I mentioned to you before, I had my first number of manic episodes, and I have, like, very severe manic episodes where I get, you know, very crazy, for lack of a better word, and delusional or whatnot. Um, and then I got into the field, which was definitely very beneficial. Um, and I think I had like, so basically, for my experience with the co-occurring mental health and substance use issues, for a long time I was at a place, well, I don't really know if it's this mental health or this, mental illness that's really the problem. Maybe it's just the substance use. So if I don't like smoke weed and drink, I'll be fine. And then on the flip side, I said, well, maybe I can drink and smoke weed if I just take these kind of medicines. And so it was that kind of like, back and forth. And it was two things that I really needed to take care of. And so for years I didn't do that on a consistent basis, whether it was not take medication or take less medication, or go back to drinking or getting high. And I would eventually have those kind of same results. And I would, basically, the pattern was I would have these really crazy manic episodes. I'd get thrown in the hospital, which petitioned in the hospital, which was not fun at the time, but was necessary to kind of save me from myself, so to speak. But then I would be in these really bad dark depressions, and which, you know, used to, first few times would last, years or whatnot. And then so it started like, well, maybe I'll take less medication, or maybe I'll start, getting high again. And it was just this long, cycle or whatnot. And then, I moved back to Arizona. I, gotten sober for about a year and a half, and then had a episode, and then was sober for 16 years. But I was sober about 8 years, or like in no kind of instances whatsoever, which was, great. And kind of think you're maybe out of the woods, so to speak. And but then I had, and I was working this big event, young people's 12-step event, and I had an episode, was in the hospital. And then, but I had been sort of free from that for like 7 years. And then I had that, episode, or maybe it was 10 years. Or luckily, I was working in a mental health agency. Luckily, I didn't, lose my job and was able to go, on, uh, just short-term disability or whatnot. Uh, and then, well, so then I went another stretch without having, basically having any kind of, episodes. But for a long period, it was kind of like balancing all the pieces, so to speak. Like I said, if I'm, you know, getting high, or I'm not taking the medication, or I'm not like sleeping. Sleeping was another big thing. Uh, and a lot of this stuff I do is big projects, which then is what kind of, I'm super into it. I don't sleep, and then I'm off to the races. And uh, so I don't know if I'm answering your answering your question, but basically, it's kind of a journey, and even still is, now I moved back here and was, again, had been stable through doing suicide, the ripple effect, and even through completing the sort of my ascension, which were both really, huge projects. But thankfully I didn't, have any episodes during then. But then, you know, since the finishing of my ascension, or the last few years, I've had, uh, you know, several different episodes of mania. And um and it's kind of different things, and I kind of get to the point where I think, okay, I'm taking my medicine, I'm not drinking or getting, high, I'm gonna be, kind of fine. And it's like every kind of time, I guess, is a little bit of a learning thing. Um, but just recently, like one of the kind of episodes, which was a few years ago, I was doing a big suicide prevention virtual event, which was, um, a massive 130 presentations. It was during COVID or whatever. And again, not sleeping, and just went, but but this recent time, basically, which was just at the beginning of the year, I was, working in a treatment center. Things were going great, very active in my 12-step recovery, uh, and seeing my counselor regularly, psychiatrist regularly, taking my medication. And then it was just like, for whatever reason, it was just a little kind of uh, spark that set me off, and that was, off to the races again. And, luckily, um, was caught again, and, in the hospital, and kind of bouncing back. So I guess, to, sort of answer your question, it can be a challenge, it can be uh tough to do it, because but everybody's kind of different, and their own mental health issues is very different, and to a different uh person, and what you kind of deal with and experience. So um in the past, I've kind of could know and sort of pinpoint of, oh, it was this. I wasn't, you know, sleeping. I needed sleep medicine. And then, but this time was a little more kind of unknown. We can kind of pinpoint sort of little things. But like for myself, or I think people like myself who deal with the mania, it can be like a real, quick spark. So it's not like being depressed and you can be like, oh, ask for help, go see somebody. It's like, once it kind of switch clicks, it's I'm not going to be asking for help because I think I'm fine, and I'm think, king of the universe. So why do I need to ask for help, sort of thing. Um, so yeah, but I mean, I think, it's basically utilizing the tools that are out there. I think if you can work at a place, which, I know you do, that values mental health and can um, allow you to get help when you need help, and take that time if you need time, it's very, very beneficial. Um, but it's a journey, and you keep on keeping on.
Yeah, well, one, thank you for being so open with us and our
Yeah.
listeners. And two, I think, your point of saying it's a journey is what's so important. And I think in terms of like our own self-maintenance, self-care, managing our own mental health to whatever degrees, everybody has mental health because we all have a brain. That we have to have grace with ourselves as well. Like not stressing ourselves out about trying to not be stressed kind of thing. Like everything in life is a journey. So not to be hard on yourself if when you hit those rough spots where through whatever anybody's individual journey is. I'm babbling now, but just knowing that like not being so hard on yourself or thinking you failed in your journey when crisis happens, because it's going to happen to everybody, and it's nothing to be ashamed of.
Yeah, I mean, thankfully I have great family supports that are there. Uh, you know, at every step of the way to kind of support me and help me get the help I need, even if I'm don't need help or whatnot. And they're there to help me kind of pick up the pieces and stuff like that. So it's yeah, it's definitely I'm blessed from the fact that many people don't have the kind of support system that I have that can really kind of help me uh, overcome and deal a little better. Because if I didn't have that kind of support system, I mean, I would basically certainly be the plight of many people that have similar issues to me, which is prison or like the state mental hospital or dead. So uh, without my family and that kind of support, that would definitely be the case for me, one of those.
Yeah. And I liked what you said earlier, like when you were talking, you said that it's always kind of like you're learning, like you keep learning, like you might learn this one year and then like 3 or 4 years go by and then you learn something else. And I feel like that's how mental health is. What do you find is the biggest misconception about mental health?
uh I mean, I think a part of it is that it's not like one easy definable sort of thing, what I mean? So people don't really know or understand the different kind of nuances, so to speak, or the different aspects of things. If somebody maybe have schizophrenia, somebody may have anxiety disorder, somebody maybe have depression, some people might have mania or manic episodes. They're different sorts of things. So I think that's kind of one thing. I mean, I think just educating kind of people, and I think there is a lot of that now, as far as there's definitely a lot more talk and education around mental health, um which I mean, like uh Sherrod says, or others do, it's that everybody has mental health, and that's important, but also some of us have like serious mental illnesses. So
Right.
it's a little bit, different like that. And I think I think the stuff now is great with bringing the general awareness to mental health. And I think the importance of just getting people to ask for help and say they need help, and, companies being willing to make accommodations or just create a more uh, healthy environment, mentally. I think that's, all awesome. And it also, that piece will can get people to, hopefully when they are having these mental health challenges, that they can ask for help and then actually find out what's going on with them. I think you can kind of run into the challenge of if everybody has mental health, that it's kind of like thrown in, oh, I'm bipolar too, or what I mean, like, but it's can kind of thrown around a lot, like people that can say they're bipolar or whatever, but I'm like, I got papers to prove I'm bipolar, like lots of them.
And I think that is an important distinction, because I mean, there is a difference in the spectrum of mental health in, someone who goes through struggles, just, trying to make sure that they're coping properly. Maybe someone who is like prone to anxiety or depression, but it isn't necessarily like something that is, unencumbering to their life. But then to the other end, where there are these very acute presenting mental health diagnoses, where you would have manic episodes, or where you might have delusions, or you might have hallucinations. And I think, of course, like we've all said, that a normalizing aspect to that is so important, but also recognizing like there's a different degree of care needed, because it's not just like, oh, I'm kind of off. It's like, no, this is actually like a very like real illness that has now affected me. And you can't just self care yourself out of that. It's not to diminish self care, but I think just to your point, Greg, that there are different levels.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's for me one of the real reasons that it's so important within the schools and like the schoolwork that you're doing and getting to be out in a lot of the schools with Emma and with my Ascension, um, because it does, have that degree. So, we always are actually encourage people, hey, if you're, you know, feeling suicidal or depressed, that, tell somebody, tell a parent, tell a coach, tell a friend, call 988. But we also, tell them, hey, we want to, and I know you do as well, but like get to things before their main issues, or if someone, is experiencing significant things, but it doesn't even necessarily, that's not, because for maybe a year or two when I was in LA, I started experiencing what I know now was depression, but I was like, and I'd even remember seeing like depression commercials on the TV and was like, that does that be me? And then, friends like, you're not depressed, are you? Like, so it's just that kind of unknown. So I think particularly with the schools, if we can really have those conversations and have, encourage them to reach out, even if they're not suicidal, but if they're experiencing challenges or troubles, then that is how important it is to reach out for help.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you for that 988 plug. Just a reminder to everybody, V-Link is a proud answerer of 988 in Louisiana, but 988 is available 24 hours a day for free, no matter what your age or whatever you're going through. Just like Greg mentioned, that you do not have to be having active thoughts of suicide to call 988. We are there when you just need to get the gunk off your chest and you're not sure where to turn to. And of course, we are there. If you are having thoughts of suicide, if you're not even sure that you can keep yourself safe today, we're there to help you with what you need in that moment. It's no scripts. It is just we are there to support you through whatever you're going through. So never hesitate to call 988. That rhymed, and I'm very proud of it. I did not plan
And
it.
if you can't talk on the phone, you can always text 988 and someone's there.
Thank you, Jesse.
Oh,
Just Um, so we've touched on this a little bit, Greg, about your support system, and I know you've mentioned your family. I've gotten to meet your mom a couple of times. She's lovely. Shout out to Greg's mom. But just wanted to talk a little bit about how do you just kind of within yourself and your journey keep yourself motivated? I mean, you've accomplished so much and you are so passionate and compassionate to other people. What kind of drives that motivation?
um, I don't know. I mean, it kind of ebbs and flows. Now I'm the phase where there's not as much of, meditation or motivation. I mean, I am getting more of that, like as far as getting back working out and stuff like that. Because a lot of times have these, or at least I have these episodes, and it's, you kind of go from being like way up, on top of the world, even though it's like in your head or whatever. But you do. Oftentimes a lot of damage or different things, and then you basically come down to reality, so to speak, and they're like, oh no, I need to get a job, I need this or whatever. Um so that can be one of the challenges, with mental health issues of finding that motivation, particularly when you kind of, and as y'all know, it's not a straight line journey. So particularly if you go, okay, cool, everything's going, really, really good. I'm really happy where this is going. And then bam, and then you're like down here, you're like, oh, fuck, like, and so then it's kind of hopefully finding that motivation to kind of, move out of it. Um, so that's kind of what I'm, doing now as far as that. So it can be things like, going to the gym. My daughter, a 9-year-old daughter, so a big part of is hanging out with her and doing things with her. And so doing, trying to kind of force yourself to do projects or things maybe that neglected or whatnot. Because it's easy to fall into, or it's just a lot of times, like when I was in Arizona, and even not as much now, but I still do it, but like just getting out of bed was like a huge, a huge thing. And I have like a dabbled in spoken word, and I had a fear of getting out of bed because my head would wake up too, was like a line, so it's like that kind of thing where you're just in bed and you know that, just sleeping is the one kind of piece that you kind of have, and if you get up, it's just going to be, all this kind of depression and negative self-talk and all that. Uh, so that's something to really combat. You know what I mean? I kind of have upped my frequency of meetings with my therapist, um, who's great. Uh, Shout out to John Fritz. Uh, and uh, and so, we're actually going to start kind of I do 12-step recovery. So that's been a big thing to kind of dive back into that. I attend a men's meeting regularly, so it's a good group of guys and stuff like that. Um, so yeah, just trying to motivate and get involved in stuff, and not fall into the deep depression of things.
Yeah. And this might sound dumb, but I can't think of a better way to say it. But like meeting yourself where you're at. Like I think that's so important. Like you've said, Greg, where like when it's a day that getting out of bed is all you can do, that's a huge accomplishment for that day and shouldn't be diminished. That not every day, not every month, not every year is going to be this go, go, go. Like it's important to have your times of recuperation, and it's important to congratulate and celebrate yourself for wherever you are at. And like having that awareness and introspection for yourself is a skill. It is something that we all have to learn on our journeys in life. And I think that is really important to acknowledge and recognize and appreciate where you are at on any given day, and nurturing that component of yourself wherever you are.
Yeah, yeah, definitely. I think it's, important to like kind of find uh the balance in that, as far as like taking time for yourself, but I can easily fall into like the slothness or the lack of motivation. So kind of that, finding that balance of giving yourself grace and taking time for yourself, but like not letting my, self fall too much into that, which can be hard to get out of.
Yeah, balancing act.
Yeah, definitely. I know it can be hard. I always tell people, it's okay not to be okay. If you need to take a day and just kind of focus on one thing, that's okay. As long as you're okay. And you feel like that might be the best for you. Like you said, a lot of people that I've talked to in the past, getting out of bed to them is like a chore, and they struggled with it. And I'm like, well, if that's the only thing you do that day, that's the only thing you do that day. It's okay. Just give yourself that grace, because that's what's the most important, is to just not beat yourself up when you think you should be doing A through Z and you can only get to A. Sometimes that's just what it is, and that's okay.
Mhm. Yeah, no, for sure. And I think that can be a, huge thing. And I mean, as I mentioned before, 12-step recovery is really, saved me, and particularly early on, I mean, even now, but as far as gotten me to where I was able to do a lot of the things I was able to do with, with work and Magellan, and not only from a personal standpoint of just kind of staying sober, but like kind of teaching those kind of skills that you learn through that, through service work, which is a big part of my recovery. Not as much anymore, but um, where you're doing, different things to kind of give back and help others. And so as part of that, when I was in Arizona, I started meetings at both of the juvenile detention centers in the area. So I'd go on one on Saturday and the other one on Sunday, and just, kind of share my story, bring in somebody else with me, and that sort of thing. And then I started a meeting at the Arizona State Hospital, which is basically the forensic hospital. So, which is where people have gone and are there who've done really horrific type of crimes, from killing family members or trying to, just really, for the criminal insane. But I would go in there every, week and kind of realize that I could, I could, this could be me. These basically people who are just like me, who have mental health issues. A lot of them are, or be off their meds, or off their meds and drinking, and done these horrific sort of things. And um, just having the gratitude that's not me, but also knowing that could be me if I'm not doing the things that I need to do. And so that was the 12-step stuff. Really gave me the foundation to do a lot of those things that were really healing for myself and beneficial.
Mhm.
Yeah.
And I think just, again, really learning that, like, it's a journey. I think we keep saying that, and I like that because that, like,
Yeah.
different days, different weeks, different months, different years are different, and being able to learn who your supports are, but then also how you support yourself best is, it's a never ending discovery, but it's really important because, like you said, I love what you were saying about the balance there, Greg, with like making sure that you're having self-care, making sure that you're, nurturing yourself when you need it, but then not then letting that prolong too long to where then it's like, well, now I'm just not motivating myself.
Mhm.
That sure, we have days where you've got to kind of, you might need to stay in the bed, but don't make that your forever. If A is all
Right.
you could achieve, that's wonderful, but then find your time when you're going to start reaching for B, and I think that's
Right.
an amazing, an amazing lesson.
Yeah. I definitely agree. And I know you've accomplished a lot. What would you say to anyone who wants to follow their passion but is nervous about like where to start, or nervous about their own mental health journey as they pursue their career?
I mean, kind of like we've been talking about, taking sort of initial steps and just trying to do it. Um, First and foremost, if you do have mental health issues, or, I guess even if you don't have significant mental health issues, everybody has mental health, as Sharon says, but is making sure you're taking care of that and making sure you're getting the self-care that you need to. But particularly if you do have more significant mental illness or mental health issues, that you're taking care of that, because you can't, help anybody if you're not able to help yourself first. And finding something that you're passionate about, and being able to utilize your experience dealing with mental health issues as a positive to help others, to help yourself, and to try to channel that. Because like I talked about earlier, it can be very devastating to have to live with mental health issues, and more importantly, the consequences that come with that. But if you can kind of see the purpose in that, find a bit of power in that, and use that power to do whatever you want to, do in life, as far as if it's a career, if it's something entertainment, if it's doing a podcast, whatever it may be. And just don't be afraid to fail. That's
Right. And I think that's really great advice. Thank you for sharing that. I think that's really good advice.
Thank you.
Yeah, I love that. I think it's been kind of our theme today with being like setbacks aren't permanent. So and failing at something, it doesn't even have to necessarily be a setback. Sometimes they're just like what really teach you something. Um, but I think, be kind to yourself. That's
Yeah.
probably the biggest message we can give, and always root for yourself. Be your it sounds lame, but it's important to be your own cheerleader and like
Yes.
know what motivates you, know your power ballad. Mine is personally defying gravity. Um, how to motivate yourself, but also how to know to find that balance that nobody can be superhuman. You can be a superhero, but you can't be a superhuman. We do also all have to learn how to best take care of ourselves, and that is different for everybody. And learning that is a skill as well.
Yes.
For sure.
Well, Greg, any final thoughts or anything you'd like for our listening audience to know?
Um, Just that you're a superstar. I'm very honored that you asked me to be on this Real Talk podcast. When you texted, I was like, oh, she's wanting to see if Emma will be on her podcast because that's usually the ask or request. So I was quite honored to know that you wanted me on here. So uh, yeah, appreciate you and all you do in the community and that y'all are doing this and hopefully can reach some people and change some lives and maybe even save lives with what you're doing. Because I know your work y'all do does that on a regular basis. So
Well, thank you so much, Greg. Thank you for having some real talk with us. Thank you for being so open and honest. I think that your story and everything you've shared can really, really help people, motivate people, make people feel like they're not alone. I'm so appreciative of all that you do. I'm so glad we get to work so much together. And Jesse and I will close this out with our slogan. You ready, Jesse?
I'm ready.
All right. No
No
filters,
filters,
no
no
fluff,
fluff, just real
just
talk.
real talk. Thank you.
Thank you.
awesome.